Okay, so for section 4.1, we're talking about exponents. Writing something in exponential form means that it's going to have a base and an exponent. Okay, the base is the number that's repeatedly multiplied, and the exponent tells us how many times that number is multiplied. So in this case, our base is a 5, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fives. So 5 is multiplied by itself 6 times. In letter B, our base is a -4, and make sure that -4 goes in parentheses. That's how it's given to us. And there are 1, 2, 3 of them. So the 3 is our exponent there. In letter C, it mixes numbers and letters together. There are 3/8 and there are 4 p's, so you can't write them as one thing. You have to write the 8 with an exponent of 3 and the p with an exponent with 4. And that's your answer. So exponential form is just taking something that was in repeated multiplication and writing it with a base and an exponent. Okay, so the next section is simplifying these powers. So when they give you a power, what does it mean? And how do I get my answer? So this one is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Sometimes it's nice to group them, like 3 times 3 gives you 9, and 3 times 3 gives you 9. Well, what's 9 times 9? That's 81. Or you can just take 3 times 3, and that's 9, times 3, and that's 27, times 3, and that's 81. Just depends on your preference. The next one is 5 squared. So that's 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. It works the same with fractions. This just means we're going to take 1/4 times 1/4. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. Remember, you multiply across the top and then multiply across the bottom. Usually there's nothing to reduce, but if there is, you'd want to do that as well. Letter G, we have -8 times -8. Negative times a negative gives me a positive. 8 times 8 is 64. Letter H, we've got a -8, and it's in parentheses, but we have 3 of them. So notice that these two problems, the negative is carried with however many 8s we have. That's because we have these parentheses around the -8. So I have a negative times a negative, which would give me a positive, but then you have a positive times a negative. So we know that our answer is going to be a negative. This one turns out to be 8 times 8, which is 64. And sometimes you might have to just do this off to the side. 64 times 8 ends up getting me 512. So just have to be careful of your positives and negatives. So now letter I and J, they're both negatives, but they're different than G and H because the negative is not in parentheses. So if that's the case, we have the negative here. The 2 is multiplied 2 times 2 times 2, but the negative just hangs out and gets applied at the end. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, so we get a -8. In the next one, again, the negative is here, 2 times 2 is 4, but the negative is applied at the end, so it's a -4. So it's different than if that number is in the parentheses like it is here. Okay. Letter K, we are going to be evaluating. Evaluate basically just means to solve it. And so we are going to replace x with 20, y with 4, and z with 2. So x is 20, y is 4, z is 2, y is 4. So I just rewrite the problem. And then we need to follow the order of operations. So for example, we need to do what's inside the parentheses first. Inside the parentheses first. And we have to do the exponents before the multiplication. So this is going to be 2 times 4 times 4, which is 16. I think rewriting the problem is really helpful so you can see the different steps. Now I still need to take care of those parentheses. 2 times 16 is 32. And then just make sure you don't take 20 minus 4 first because multiplication happens before subtraction. So 4 times 32 is 128. So I need to take 20 and I need to subtract 128. So 20 minus 128 is going to give us a negative number. It's going to give us a negative 108. Okay. Letter J is kind of similar to this too. It's an application problem. So it says the number of diagonals of an n-sided figure is 1/2 times n squared minus 3n. Use the expression to find the number of diagonals for a 6-sided figure. Well, they basically said n-sided to 6-sided. So think for a second, where do you think that, what's going to replace the n in this situation?
The 6.
That's right. So we're going to take and we're going to write out this expression, but now I'm going to put a 6 in there. And my parentheses inside here just means multiplication. So I have 1/2 on the outside. 6 squared is 36. 6 times 3 is 18. Inside the parentheses, 36 minus 18 is 18. And 1/2 of 18 is 9. So therefore, they want to know how many diagonals. They gave you the formula. So it's 9 diagonals. So a lot of times they'll give you the formula. You just have to know how to use exponents and order of operations to solve it.